Well, it's that time of year when admission fever is at its peak. Demystifying the studying abroad process, it's Karan Gupta, a leading education counselor who's been helping students find their calling for almost 2 decades. He's also the MD of IE Business School for India and South Asia. Karan, great to have you with us in studio today.
Thank you very much, Ava.
So it all sounds very exciting. I mean, you've been counseling students on studying abroad and the process, and it can be very daunting at times. And particularly nowadays when we're hearing all about Brexit and how it's going to make things even more cumbersome, possibly, for students wanting to travel. What are some of the biggest challenges for students when they're trying to find the right match abroad?
So I think Brexit, what it's really changed is that the free movement between faculty and resources, what would happen between EU and the UK, that's been impacted now. And I feel that over the long run, UK is going to lose out because they're not going to get qualified faculty from the EU anymore. They're not going to get enough international students from the EU. EU students were classified as home students, which is not going to happen anymore. So there's going to be this huge void in UK institutes. And I think a beneficiary of that might just be the EU, because people who were looking to study in the European region would now want to prefer studying in the EU, because the EU still as a whole would have better institutes with more resources available as compared to the UK.
And there seems to be a perception that there is a language barrier in the rest of the EU. Is that true?
Well, for most public universities, yes. When you're going to study in a school in France or Germany, you are going to find language to be a barrier. However, there are several private institutes which are very well known, ranked really high. Those institutes teach in English. So we have students going to them for the undergrad as well as the postgrad education options, and they learn in English.
So let me talk about IE and your experience with them. What are the type of courses they offer? Why is that, for example, an attractive destination, especially as a business school?
So I studied at IE. I did my MBA at IE in 2006, and I think it was an amazing decision because Spain is not viewed as a study abroad destination typically. So me being kind of a non-conformist and thinking out of the box, decided to go to Spain. And I think it was great because the international diversity that you get in classes at IE, like 70 to 75% of my class were students from all over the world. And you have faculty from all over the world. And just living in Madrid, which is a great, safe city in Spain, was an amazing experience. And the school offers several courses, which are the MBAs, the Masters in Management, Finance, undergrad courses.
And you're obviously seeing a lot of traction, because I was reading somewhere that you've actually helped now in your role as a consultant with them to also really garner in revenues. So there's obviously interest and more students that are opting for it now. Right.
So over the last 11 years that I've been working with IE, we've seen the numbers of students just exponentially grow from India. We have more than 100 students who go every year to IE and study the different courses at the undergrad and grad level.
That's amazing. So you yourself, you mentioned you studied at IE. You've also gone to Harvard Business School. Talk to us about that. You know, how was the experience? Is it something that's a must-do?
Sure. So Harvard was, of course, one of the most important and best decisions of my life. And I learned a lot at Harvard, and I think if something really sticks with me were a few management principles that I learned at Harvard. I remember my dean had said, you come to Harvard not to be perfect, but to be courageous. And that really stuck with me because it takes courage to take risk, and calculated risk is needed to succeed today. They taught us that don't be afraid of failure. Failure is not the enemy. It should be viewed as something that fear of failure drives you to work harder. Fear of failure makes you succeed. And the most important thing that I learned at Harvard was creating value. So I had this professor, Vijay Govindarajan, who was this amazing guy who taught us that if you serve the needs of billions of non-consumers of the world, that's when you're going to really create value and change the world. And this stuck with me the most.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's actually very interesting. But, you know, when it comes to Indian students who are discovering some of these principles and discovering perhaps a new world order and how to be more globalized, for example, how do you feel they stack up? You know, when we're talking about international campuses, are we able to sort of fit into what's required globally in terms of skill sets? Do we still have some catching up to do, or are we ahead of others? You know, what's the sort of observations you've made?
So I think Indian students are really smart. Indian students work very hard. I think we are probably the most hardworking race there is.
We have a point to prove, isn't it?
We always do. We always have this point to prove, you know? So yes, Indian students work hard. Indian students are very smart. Indian students know how to work smart, which is important as well. Where we lack is probably communication skills. where we lack is cultural sensitivity. So things like communication skills and cultural sensitivity, if we work towards those,
Got it.
I think we're at par with any of the leading international student races anywhere in the world.
All right, so that's heartening to know as well. And these are important things because these are some of these elements, for instance, one could actually work on before traveling as well. Okay, you've actually turned entrepreneur yourself, Karan, and we love entrepreneurs here on Rising Stars. So I want to talk to you about that. You've got, I think, two foundations, KGEF and KGC, which also focuses a lot on women empowerment, which I'll get to in a moment. But talk to us about both of these and your role.
Okay, so I did my undergrad in the US, and when I came back here 17 years ago, there was a lack of information, lack of resources available to candidates, and that's when I set up an education consulting or an education search firm, which helps kids with their study abroad, with their career options. And over the years, we've got tremendous success. We've got students who've done really well for themselves. We help students with their career options. But what we found is that the kids we're dealing with were the privileged kids. And there came a time where we have to also help people who are underprivileged and give back to the community. And that's when we set up the Karan Gupta Education Foundation. And the main mission of the foundation, of course, is to provide education to underprivileged kids and women empowerment. And now, one of the reasons why we went towards women empowerment was because we found that families with limited resources would typically arrange the resources to pay for the male child. But when it comes to the female child, the resources are over. And the foundation can, of course, help only a limited number of people. So whenever we have to prioritize, women and female candidates are always given top priority.
Okay, fantastic. So the foundation, I mean, you must be garnering funds from a variety of different avenues. How does it work?
Okay,
exactly?
so this is interesting. As a rule, this is a very strange rule, but we don't take funds into the foundation from outsiders. What we do is that if someone wants to contribute, we put them in touch with a school, and they pay the school directly, who in turn pays for the child's education.
Okay, got
and
it.
then every student who pays us for any service, we take a part of that fee and we put it in the foundation.
Okay, great.
So it's just more transparent this way, that you never pay my foundation, you pay the school directly.
Okay, if it works. And you also, of course, help students who are looking for financial aid just in that process as well, and understand perhaps how they can best apply. What would be some of the secrets or key tips that you could share with us?
To get funding?
Yeah.
Okay, of course, great question. So one is, of course, select the school carefully. There are schools which are known to give lots of funding to candidates. And then we just tell the kids that if you really are looking for funding, look at the right schools which would look at your profile and in turn provide you funding. You can avail of loans. There are several loans where you don't need to have any kind of co-signer. You don't need any guarantee. You can get those loans. And you can work on campus as well. We found that no matter what your budget, if you want to study abroad or if you want to study in India, there are ways and means where you can actually get funding from private organizations, from institutes, loans, campus study, work study. Put a nice combination package together and you'd be able to pay for your education.
Okay. And what would be some of the top schools that students here continue to kind of lust after?
So the US, of course, is the most popular destination to study abroad even now. And everyone wants to look at Harvard or Stanford or Wharton, Cornell, Yale. In Europe, of course, London Business School, IE Business School, INSEAD. And then in Asia, of course, you've got the National University Singapore, which is very popular as well. Okay.
So there is still that desire, of course, for the Ivy Leagues.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I want to just ask you a little bit more about some of your, personal experiences in interacting with a whole host of these students, Karan. Any experience you want to share with us on, that's really touched you, or where it's really made a difference?
Sure. So I think the one thing that I really remember was 17 years ago when this girl comes to my office who was frail, simply dressed, and she waited patiently to see me. And when I saw her, she explained to me her vision that she wants to work on Wall Street, she wants to earn tons of money and eventually wants to change the world. And there's something about her that touched me. And for a year, we worked hard together with her applications, her GMAT, and then we applied for admission to business schools. And I was overjoyed when I had read the headlines which said, blind girl gets into Wharton MBA. So this girl, with her adversities, with just her conviction that I'm going to achieve what I want, and she did, that really stuck with me, and that pushed me further. In fact, one of the reasons why the foundation was established was because of her conviction. And the questions which people ask me is that, are you a feminist? And being a male, that's a rather peculiar question to ask me, that am I a feminist? And
I was going to ask you as well.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped the gun there then. But, and what I tell people is that I believe in equal political, personal, social, financial rights for men and women both. And I believe in equality. I believe in respect. And if that makes me a feminist, then yes, my name is Karan Gupta and I'm a proud feminist.
All right, Karan, on that note, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much,
on Rising Stars today, and plenty of opportunity there, as Karan, of course, has described as well, for all those of you that are still considering traveling overseas and getting that much wanted degree. We need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll also get you exclusive views from Reliance Digital going forward on their brand new mobile handsets under their new brand.